it's morning here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm assuming it's morning for many other people logging in, but this is a worldwide event. Techstars is a global company. So welcome to day 2 of Techstars Startup Week. This session in particular is around the inclusive innovation track, is the opportunity for military veterans in the startup ecosystem. And so we have some it's a very timely and quite honestly long overdue conversation. Personal for me, my father is a Marine. So I grew up looking at a bunch of he's a major, looking at a bunch of swords on the wall and pictures and things like that. So influential.
Joey, today's the Marine Corps birthday.
Yeah.
I am embarrassed that I did not know that. So you conclude. So that being said, I can't do Todd your intro any justice. So if you would take a few minutes to talk a little bit about your background, some of the things you worked on in terms of the military, but also in terms of things, entrepreneurship, and maybe what you're working on now, and then we'll kick it to Chris and Ben if he's able to join us.
Good, sure, yeah. Thanks, Joey, and it's good to be with you and the Atlanta startup community. I'm going to give a special shout out to the Bunker Labs city leaders, Jason Smith, Megan Rowe, and Andrew Davenport, who are doing some very wonderful things to help organize and lead the veteran military connected community in Atlanta. So I want to make sure that I give them proper shout out. So by way of background, I'm coming to you right now from just outside Chicago, but we've got a chapter of Bunker Labs that's in Atlanta. My quick background is I served in the Navy for a few years after college. Really loved my time. Didn't expect that I would make it a career, but enjoyed my opportunity to serve, transition out of that experience, and kind of fell into what most people is a typical corporate path. I went to business school, tried to better myself, got, an MBA, got sort of that, coveted, consulting job and was doing that for a little bit. And, sort of stopped at that phase in my life, looked around and said, I'm okay. I got a good thing going here, no complaints. But is this sort of what I want to do with the rest of my life? And I think for me, and I think that for a lot of military veterans, the answer was like, I want to do more. I think when you're in the military, you have the sense of mission, the sense of ambition. You're doing hard things, you're taking on challenges. There's, you're kind of moving up and to the right. And I think, for me, I had this experience in the private sector of just feeling like I was maybe sliding sideways or maybe even just doing work that didn't sort of inspire me or didn't sort of challenge me. And so I started a business and sort of began a path of pursuing things that mattered to me, becoming an entrepreneur, although that wasn't the term I used, but just found ways to kind of string together and create initiatives or businesses to serve clients that put me on a path of determining, my own future, my own direction. And that for me was very fulfilling, not because I was trying to launch a big tech startup or because I had some grand plan of, making an exorbitant amount of money, although that's great if you can do it. But it was just about, I want the freedom to pursue the creative and interesting projects that matter to me. And, working for yourself is the way to make that happen. It's the way in which you can do that. And so that was about 10 years ago, about 15 years ago. And the rest is history. We don't need to get into all the details. But about 7 years ago, I started an organization, Bunker Labs, to help military veterans and the military community, including military spouses, as well as the active duty service members, as well as the Guard and Reserve, who basically operate on part-time, to create an opportunity, a program to help them start businesses. And we started it in Chicago, didn't know necessarily what the interest was going to be. I just felt like, as a military veteran myself, that this, I have enjoyed this and maybe other people will enjoy it as well. Not sure what the needs are, but we got a big influx. A lot of folks reached out and said, yep, I'm in, I need this. Some folks reached out saying, I have already started my business, but I want to help others do the same thing. And we just ignited sort of a community through that action. And that community has grown over the last 7 years to include chapters in 40 cities across the country, including Atlanta. And we're helping it'll be about 3,000, 4,000 entrepreneurs this year kind of start businesses. And so I come at this work from a sort of a human-centered place, which is I want people to find fulfillment through their work. I want them to wake up and feel like my best years are ahead of me, not behind me. I want people to wake up and sort of live into the full expression of their own creativity, their own unique ideas. I want them to do it from the place that they're at. Not to sort of present entrepreneurship as you've got to become someone you're not in order to be successful, but rather you've got to become exactly who you are, because that's what we need. And so I'm just excited. I wrote a book, we can chat about this, called Third Shift Entrepreneur, which is really about the framework that I've seen people apply for how to get things started and how to build your future and do that from the place that you're at with the job that you have, that you don't in fact have to sort of take dramatic risks to start your business. You can in fact find strategic and subtle and small and specific ways to bring those things to life. So that's the short version of the story. I'm still passionate for helping the military connected community. Thanks to your father, Joey, for his service. Happy birthday to the Marine Corps. And I really do believe that if more people in this country start businesses, we're going to unlock all the good things that we need in this country, all the good things that we need in our communities. I mean, that happens. So much of that can happen through entrepreneurship. And so I'm just excited to talk to you this morning.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your service. I do know we have one more panelist that I want to confirm. I think Ben maybe experienced some technical difficulties, but Ben is on. I don't know if you could hear or see us. If not, we're gonna try to get you on. I know it's difficult if you're not on Chrome. Okay, but so we're gonna work through that. But Chris, you work.
Yeah.
Is it possible you just quickly allow people to, or give a quick overview about what you do, and then also if you could maybe talk a little bit about Ben as well.
Yeah, I had a very similar background, minus the book. I can't follow Todd on that one. But yeah, I'm from Alabama. I come from a family of, my dad had 12 brothers and sisters. Every one of them was in the military, pretty much in every branch. So I think that's all we knew. After high school, you're either going to go to college or you can go to the military. You're not going to do anything else. So I went to college for ROTC in track and Army Reserves in college. And then I worked for the government for 2 or 3 years because my parents have been with the government my whole life. It wasn't for me. I kind of took Todd's route and wanted to kind of chase something different, chase money, at that time. And I went the corporate route and worked with Humana and Mercer, a couple other companies. And then I kind of got into the tech space from the investment side before actually becoming a tech founder or getting into private security. So it kind of found me, I always say, because 6 years ago, me and my wife lived in Tampa, Florida, and we had a home invasion. And after the fact is when we started thinking about security and being aware of what's going on in your surroundings. And it kind of really got me obsessed. And that's when we went down the road of becoming an actual founder of a tech company that was security focused. And now we also have another company that is a traditional protection firm that's licensed here in Georgia. And that kind of is what led me and Ben, we trained together. Ben Morton, he's a former Army knucklehead, I'll say. But Ben Morton, he's an Army U.S. Ranger. Gosh, I think he got out probably 2016, but he has a very decorated background. He's done everything you could think of, from executive protection to kidnap recovery, several deployments. So he leads our executive protection division. And so any guys that come in, they want to join our team or train, work on clients, he oversees that aspect of it. So yeah, Ben is definitely has an amazing career. He's very modest and humble. You wouldn't know if you didn't ask him, which is why we thought this would be great for him to kind of come on here. But I don't think Google Chrome likes him right now. So yeah, that's our story. Most of our team, including Ben, are really more of a social type of founder. We kind of got into this for for different reasons. It really wasn't around business or money. Todd knows most military guys are really tied to a team. We all love working together, but we also love to serve and to give back. So we just have a very good recipe with our team.
Awesome. No, that's amazing. Well, Todd, before we go into the book and some of the lessons learned there, things you want to share, I do want to talk about, both of you all, have seen entrepreneurship in, I think, the military side from different angles. What are some of the traits that you see in military veterans that you may also see in both startup founders, but also those that work for startups? And then Chris, you just alluded to the team part of it. As a startup, team is everything. And in the early days, there's a few people doing a bunch of different things and it's super chaotic. But, Todd, kick it to you first. Any kind of similar characteristics or traits?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think being a successful entrepreneur is so much about the fundamentals. Do you work hard? Are you professional? Do you cross the T's and dot the I's? Can you play well with others? Can you clearly articulate what the mission is, what it is that you're trying to do? Can you quickly organize a project plan and a team around it? That's what matters when you're starting a business. It really is. It's these fundamentals of just, professional competence. And which is to say, it's not about brilliant ideas. And I think when I first started, when I started my first business, I thought to myself, and I think this is why I didn't identify with the word entrepreneur, because it felt intimidating. It felt like Silicon Valley. It felt like someone a lot smarter than me with a lot more money than me. But once you get into the game, you realize starting a business is just about there's a customer for whom I can solve a problem and they're willing to pay me to do that. And I'm now just working for myself. Mm-hmm. And so I think in the conversation, we have overweighted the idea of brilliance or technical savvy and underweighted what I'll call just, the professional competencies of work hard, be professional, do what you say you're going to do it on time or do it early, please, thank you, proper spelling in the emails. I mean, it sounds sort of old school, but I will tell you, if you want to run once you move past the identity of wanting to be an entrepreneur, you are running a business. So think about all the good bosses you've worked for and all the bad ones you've worked for. Think about the highly talented individuals that you've had on your team and those that fall short. You just want to be good. And I think the military gives you a skill set for professionalism, for work ethic, for values, for leading with integrity. And, there's too many stories in the startup space of companies that actually have something kind of interesting from a product or service standpoint, but the team's not well led. There's ethical issues. There's egos. All those things in my view are toxic. So I think the military skill set really is, it's back to basics. It's back to the fundamentals of what it means to be a professional. And just because you're an entrepreneur doesn't mean that you're exempt from being a professional. Just because you can, wear hoodies and go to co-working spaces doesn't mean that you don't need to know how to put on a collared shirt. And I don't want to get into that.
So another conversation.
I can take it too far, but you get the point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, what do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think, it might sound biased, but if we have a choice to hire somebody off the street versus someone that has a military background, we know that person with the military background is gonna have pride in his appearance. Just shaving, being well groomed, just some simple things. Some of that stuff is hard to teach. I think you would assume that everyone knows. If you're going to this job, your clothes need to be ironed. You need to be well groomed and shaved. And they teach you that in the military. I don't know. You just something you know it and it sticks with you. And you're right. I think in the tech space it's very different. It's it's a lot more laid back and relaxed. I think compared to the military. It is different. I don't know. It's just a different ingrained skill set that those guys go through that training, and it really sticks with them throughout their life and every job they go through. I do think that a lot of military guys have had a hard time transitioning even into the corporate space, and definitely into being an entrepreneur. Um, you know, that part was shocking. I think when I was back at Humana, and back then we had a program where we were really trying to help those transition military to come over. They're all officers, and they're very, you would think they had low self-esteem. It was just a different world for them to kind of go into that. So I can only imagine how it is for them trying to be business owners or go into the tech space and be part of this whole ecosystem, which is it's challenging at times for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I do want to recognize Reginald. You have a great question there. We will get to questions a little bit later on, and anybody else watching, if you have any questions, please put them in chat. Great points. And before Todd, I want to kick to you, talk a little bit about your book and some of the points in there. Is I remember my dad, and my dad has been an entrepreneur before, not in the traditional sense. I think he was an investor back in the day, and he does social impact work now. But one of the big things I remember growing up is from the professional competence side is the preparation on a routine basis every single Sunday night. So back then, I can remember, I think he had a big green, like a matte green, I think case for like bullets, I think it was. And so in this case, in the bin, he had the supplies to shine his shoes. So every single Sunday night, probably 6 or 7 o'clock, he bring it out of the garage, shine his shoes, go to the corporate job. But it was every single thing. The big thing I took from that is the preparation going into the week. I think, Chris, you kind of probably see that from the structure we run Goodie Nation. Like, the thing is prepare for the week through our stand-ups and so on and so forth. And you're probably thinking through this before the week actually starts. So it's helped me as I help to prepare other entrepreneurs. It's the same thing that I did when I was a traditional startup founder. So, tons of lessons learned there. But Todd, let's talk a little bit about your book. Title, general thoughts, what are some of the key points about it, and kind of how'd you come to the conclusion, like, I need to write a book on this particular topic?
Yeah. So the book is, it's called Third Shift Entrepreneur. And I wrote the book because I think more people need to understand, in the context of their lives, which is to say, you're not a Harvard dropout, you're not rich, you don't understand how Silicon Valley works. It's guys like me, it's guys like Chris, it's guys like you, Joey, maybe not you, Joey, but it's people that are, like I say, regular people living regular lives who still, in my view, ought to have the opportunity to start a business. And I think the reason they don't is because they don't understand the pathway that regular people can follow to build something new from the place that you're at. And so third shift entrepreneur in my language is, the first shift is your day job, which I encourage people to create that financial stability for yourself, set that floor, right? And that floor protects you. It also protects the business, gives the business more time to sort of be discovered. So the first shift is your job. The second shift is the things that you do for, your family, your friends, your community, your life, your service obligations or volunteer commitments. And then the third shift is what I, kind of talk about as the open space to create what's next. And we all have the opportunity, if we're smart about how we use our time, to kind of begin to build what's next. So rather than thinking of entrepreneurship as a sort of, stop one thing and start a new thing, I think of it more as like a portfolio where we've got the now and then we're building what's next. And at any given point in my life, I'm doing a few things now, but I'm also kind of heads up and looking at a few things that I want to do next, and it's really driven by what's of interest to me, where I think I can be of service to people, what I'm passionate about, what I see the needs are. And this is a skill set that entrepreneurs have and they deploy, but they don't often talk about the fact that they are keeping their day job while they do it. There was a big research study done over the span of 15 years where they looked at 5,000 entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs that kept their day job while building a new business were 33% less likely to fail. So the notion, and this to me gets into the stories that we tell ourselves, which are, dangerous or maybe not necessarily accurate, which is, we've got to take the risk, take the leap, burn the boats. go all in, right? And that kind of language creates a false urgency that is unnecessary and more than unnecessary, I'm going to argue unstrategic. And so what I'm advocating for is a more thoughtful approach to entrepreneurship, a cautious approach, experimentation-based approach, an evidence-based approach, which says, look, if Chris Rich wants to launch a security business, he goes and finds someone or a few people that need security services, occasionally on a weekend, and you just go do the thing. Maybe you do it for free, but now you've got a story to tell that says, hey, I've done this for someone, and maybe I can do it for you. And the next time you do it, maybe you charge a little bit for it. And the third or fourth time you do it, you start to really understand what the business model is. And the fifth, sixth, seventh time you do it, you begin to say, I've got a business here. And the 10th time you do it, you quit your day job and you do it full time. So this kind of stepping into entrepreneurship to me is really important. And it's strategic. And we have a problem in this country, which is rates of entrepreneurship are at like on a 50-year decline. And people don't know this. Rates of entrepreneurship in this country have been on a 50-year decline. And what has exploded in the last 20 years is our excitement around entrepreneurship, the celebrity of entrepreneurship. It's the number one major at a lot of colleges and universities. It's the number one course of study where I got my MBA. At the University of Chicago. It's never been more celebritized with shows like The Apprentice, and who, by the way, forged the career of our soon outgoing president. So it's not for lack of attention around entrepreneurship. It's not for lack of excitement. It's never been more, enthusiastically celebrated. And yet the rates of entrepreneurship are still declining. And so my argument as to too many people don't know people that have actually started businesses. And so I wrote this book, and I wrote it as a fiction with stories, so people could see real human lives, hopefully that remind them of something in their own life, and say, okay, this is how a woman does this who, is single and mid-career, or this is how a family with 3 kids can do something like this, or this is how someone who doesn't have any technology expertise can still start a home healthcare business. So the book, Third Shift Entrepreneur, is full of these stories, and I hope it illuminates a path for more people to see that this is something that they can be doing.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I have a bunch of friends over the years say, hey, I want to become an entrepreneur. I want to take this leap. And the typical advice I say is like, yeah, don't do that until you, in the startup world, we're going to say you have product market fit. Essentially do it to your earlier point until you just can't do it on the side anymore. I think it provides a little bit of a safety net there. I can understand the other side of that coin. People just kind of go all in, but at the end of the day, I think for particular the types of founders that I see, they don't have that safety net, and I've seen it. I've seen people burn through $200,000 in all their savings and stuff like that, without having any true idea about how to build the business or what problem they're actually solving. So they go back and now they don't have anything there. I think to kind of even loop that back to the military veteran piece as it relates to entrepreneurship. I don't know what Chris, if any of that stuff kind of hits home a little bit. Again, yes, you're a founder, but you also have family members, that are military veterans, and obviously you employ a number of them as well. So any of that stuff kind of ring home. I think you're on mute. Oh, Chris, you there? I think we may be having some audio issues. Are you on mute? Or maybe it's me. Todd, can you hear?
I can't. By the way, I think that's the quote of 2020. I think you're on mute. We've all said it. It's been said to all of us.
Oh, this is weird. This is awkward. Yeah, this is all 2020. Still nothing there. I wonder, did you hit a button on your computer where it's like the microphone, but it's not on hop in. Huh. Can you try now? Nothing. He's gonna try to leave and kind of come back. Well, while Chris does that, yeah, no, I think do you see that in terms of doing the, Chris, you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're good.
Reboot, always fix it. Boom.
I don't know if you heard the question or not. It was around, some things that Todd was saying, and does it kind of, in this stuff kind of, in your experience, does it ring true, especially as you look at military veterans and you work with them, your family members and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I would say for most of my family or other veterans, I don't know any of them that's ever tried to start their own business. It's kind of like when they get in the government, that's what they know, and they're terrified to try anything different, yet alone start their own business. As far as like technology founders, you're right, though. I think that, people do glorify this, and they don't really talk about the struggles and how hard it is or how lonely it is. It's not, everyone's not getting invested millions of dollars or getting the big customers that are profitable. So it's a lot of risk. I don't think there's enough focus on that aspect of it, personally. So, to your point, people just jumping in and spending $200,000 and not really having a team or a real model. That happens more often than it should. But as far as veterans, I think Bunker Labs is great because I've gone to some of your events here in Atlanta with some of the chapter leaders here, and just interacting with some of the veterans that are thinking about transition or that have and that want to be entrepreneurs. It's a great resource because a lot of them have no idea what to do. I mean, from A to Z, how to do an LLC, how to do a business plan, even some of the simple steps in the beginning, they have no idea. So it's amazing to see Bunker Labs do that. And I guess my question, Todd, do Bunker Labs interact with these guys before they actually transition? I know you guys worked with the Navy Foundation, but I don't know if you work with other branches in that aspect.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Chris. And I always say, like, we're only as good as our last interaction. So if you're having good interactions and the events are good, then it's working. Yeah. And really, that's a credit to our city leaders and ambassadors in Atlanta who are just, amazing. Mm-hmm. Right. And the unique advantage I think we have, if we want to talk about the ecosystem for a second, is that the military community wants to help itself, and really all we did was sort of put up the flagpole to say, here's where you show up to sort of give the help and get the help that you might need. And to be that sort of platform or that catalyst for those interactions to happen. And we're very focused on the interactions. I think back to the structural reasons why more people aren't starting businesses, I think it's very hard to become something that you can't see. It's very hard to become an entrepreneur if you come from a family of, folks that have worked in the government who don't know what entrepreneurship is. It's very hard to become an entrepreneur if your only model as to what entrepreneurship looks like is Shark Tank, And so this is what's changed in America. After World War II, about 50% of the military veterans that came back started businesses. And what they had all around them were lots of people who were doing it. So people said, well, gosh, Chris Rich just opened a business, and, Joey just opened up an auto body shop down the street, and so-and-so just opened a restaurant, and so-and-so's got a movie theater, and so-and-so's doing something, opened up a newspaper. So you had these people in your orbit that you could just draw from and have as mentors and personal people that say, don't go to that lawyer, go to this lawyer, because she's better for what you need. Or, you don't need to spend money on that yet. Just go do this instead. Unless we have those people within our immediate network, we're just bound to make tons of mistakes and put, unforced errors on ourselves. And so, the goal of the Bunker Labs is like, let's create an ecosystem where there's trust because everyone has worn the uniform or is married to someone that has worn the uniform or is wearing the uniform or just cares about this community. So let's bring that trust into an environment where people can then, with that trust, help each other, right? And tell us the things that we need to hear. And I've had people do that for me, and I've done it for others. And so it's just really unlocking those relationships that are so important. I think that's why we're seeing an underrepresentation of a lot of communities, including the military community, in terms of starting businesses, is because we haven't made those role models locally available. And so I'm passionate about more of those connections being made. And Chris, to your question, I think we got to start this conversation early. I was talking to a 4-star general, Army, who was kind of asking me, like, what's your thought on innovation for the military, or how do we keep, because he was seeing all this great talent at our events. He saw 200 people at a happy hour, and he's going, God, this is amazing. These are, and kind of in the back of his head is like, what would it take to keep these people in the military? Or why did they leave? And my thought was two things. Number one, I said, well, make a 30-year-old 4-star general. If you really want to shake up the culture of the United States Army, and of course, there's a million reasons why in their minds, you couldn't do that. I was like, but here's the deal. I was like, because they look at Silicon Valley and say, I can be a 28-year-old billionaire, and there's nothing in this career track that gets me towards the highest points of ambition sooner than 25 years from now. And I get why. I'm not, I was trying to be provocative intentionally in my statement, but I said, but if you really want to sort of challenge the culture of performance, do something exceptional. Take someone who's 28, fast track him to put a star on him and see what happens. I mean, just a controlled experiment, because this is how my mind works as an entrepreneur. Just see what happens. Do it once.
No, you're right. You're right. Because I mean, look at Google. They're saying, hey, you don't even have to go to college now. We'll pay you 6 figures. You know how to code.
And that's it. It's sort of this values-based assignment. And I said, and people that are really talented and confident are going to say, look, my value, I can take my value and monetize that value quickly, or not even monetize, but sort of deploy it for the things that I immediately care about, versus having to feel like I've got to go slow inside a construct. And so I think as a cultural conversation, I think that's part of what I would share with the military. And then the other thing is just, culturally, and this is for the military too, is like, if we allow people, and this is true of any corporate environment, if we allow people to pursue those things that are interesting to them on the side, then we're more likely to retain them.
Yeah.
Now we have to then see that activity not as disloyal. We can't sort of say, well, I don't like the fact that, Joey, you spend your weekends, in these coding boot camps, because what you really need to be doing is focusing on, training, in the Army for the job that you have today. Right. We've got to, because if we shut that down, then Joey leaves. So and this is the conversation that we have with corporate organizations as well, which is, because whenever I say third shift entrepreneur, the fear can be, well, doesn't that just mean that we're helping our employees leave? Or doesn't that look disloyal? Shouldn't we just be focused on the one job that we've got? And my answer is, talented people have a lot of interests. And the question for them is going to be, where can I hang my hat in such a way that the employer, whether it's the military or IBM or, whomever, thinks that's okay? Because if they don't think it's okay, then I'm more likely to leave. Right. And then you lose the talent. So I think it's a cultural conversation about allowing people to have these kinds of portfolio interests, these portfolio careers. And I think the organizations that allow for that are going to get better talent.
No. See that culture change in the military. It probably would take a long time to get there, but it would be pretty neat to see that, because they do have so many talented people, not just in the military, but even government branches. That would be interesting. That's an interesting idea.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then I told them, I want to be the 4-star general in the Army. And they're like, well, you're a Navy guy, and I've never shot a gun. And there was reasons why it wasn't going to be me, but maybe you.
I love it. So I'd love to talk a little bit about how do we get, using that philosophy, right? Third shift until it gets to, too much. Let's talk a little bit about how we might get more veterans into entrepreneurship, but also into tech, right? And so before I kind of go into that, the quick story, as you mentioned, like veterans come out, I think you said World War II. Like my dad's brother was someone who came out of Vietnam and literally started an auto body shop. And was very successful down in Mobile, Alabama for a number of years there. So I've seen it firsthand. So when of many of the veterans I've seen in the startup space, to one of your earlier points, Todd, they're really good with operations and leadership and things of that nature. I remember a few years ago, Goody Nation, we did a hackathon with the Army, actually, and a guy came in there, gave an amazing speech, and it made me be a better leader in that moment. As we start to think about how we might be able to get more veterans into the startup space, any of you all have any thoughts on it? And when I say the startup space, I mean, you could be a founder, but you can also be an early employee. right? We know that getting early employees into different roles, that startup does well. There's a new found of wealth. Are there any particular, tactically, specifically my question is around, are there any roles at startup you think that military veterans maybe, I'm going to say better suited for, because they're great at many different things, but maybe, where their strengths align? And or are there any particular types of skill sets that some veterans may have that may transfer over, like technical skills, that may transfer over into space?
Chris, I'm going to go to you.
No, as far as an idea, though, I can envision, I live in the clouds also, so I can envision a perfect partnership between Goody Nations and Bunker Labs, supported by Army and all the different branches, for an incubator for military veterans, to kind of help them figure out what they can do, what they want to do. Because a lot of them, they do have strong skill sets for project management, operations, upper management, logistics. Some of them work with technology, I think, in their day jobs, but they're not, exactly coders per se. So maybe Scrum Masters, I think they would be strong in those spaces, with, driving those, that whole process out. But I think that's one thing I have not seen, though. I've seen, we worked with Goody Nation and Joey with all these different cohorts, but I've never seen a collaboration from the military to something like that to create some new kind of incubator. I think that would be pretty interesting, not with just tech, but also with some of the companies that you engage with throughout the city.
That'd be awesome. Todd, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I like everything Chris is sharing. I think the Department of Defense is getting a lot more sophisticated in terms of thinking about the kind of porous relationship that I think they want to have established with the technology and innovation sector. And I always push too to maintain, relationships. I think the alumni community of those that have served, and I refer to them as alumni instead of veterans, because if you think about alumni, the university to which you went wants a relationship with you, because they understand that you have value back to the university as you advance in your professional life. And I would love to see the military, the DoD, do a better job of pulling back its alumni, because Chris Rich and Todd Connor and and Ben and others have a role to play, I think, in terms of, and I would be happy to play it, and I talk to so many veterans who want to sort of play a role in helping advance our national security interests, in wanting to sort of support, the military active duty component. So you have some great nonprofits that are doing that. I think the Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs have tried to sort of open the aperture a little bit for these kinds of relationships. I think DoD, by its own admission, would say it has struggled with how to sort of access the innovation sector. They've done some things, and I give them a lot of credit for trying to do things. Not all of them work, but they've got initiatives like DIUX and other innovation hubs. They've got some venture fund models that they're actually exploring and trying as well. So I think they're doing things to kind of try to create more of a relationship with the innovation sector, make themselves more open for business with startups. That all is good. I think we got to do more of that, and even be more experimental with some of those approaches. I think the second and third thing I would say is, second thing is related to policies as it relates to kind of transition. So there is the DoD, actually different branches have experimented with giving you 6 months paid time off, basically in your last terminal leave, the last 6 months that you're in the military. You can actually take that and go work in an internship for a company. The model of how they think about working for a company, though, basically requires a lot of paperwork for the HR department. And I think the DoD struggles to understand that the majority of jobs in this country are with small businesses, companies 15 people or fewer.
Yeah.
And the administrative burdens for an employer. And I say this because Bunker Labs, we hosted a number of transitioning service members, but it's really onerous. It's really hard to do, and it requires the real will of a base commander, a unit commander, to say, "I'm going to get this service member into that internship." So, I think too often, from a policy standpoint, they structure these programs on the assumption of what they think a company looks like or how a company operates. And I can't tell you, and a lot of it's like dumb stuff, but it's culturally just a different language. I mean, it's like people emailing me saying, well, I need to talk to the HR representative who's going to sponsor this candidate, and I need your fax number. And I'm like, we don't have an HR representative. We use TriNet. We don't have a fax machine.
Yeah.
I'm at a WeWork. It was just like apples and oranges. And so they're getting there, but they have to sort of, I think, have models that allow participation for small businesses. Because I think we've done a good job in this military transition piece around large employers. And there's been great work from companies like JP Morgan Chase and Starbucks and Comcast. They've done what they can do, is my view. And the next iteration of veteran transition has to be about how does Goody Nation find, great talent and onboard them? How does an organization like Bunker Labs get access to those folks? So I think we got to get to the small employer piece, and that's how you get more interested in the tech sector. That's how you get more people, kind of getting them into startups. But I'm willing to have those conversations with DoD because I'm a veteran and I can speak that language if I need to. But the vast majority of tech startups, venture-backed companies, they're not going to have. They won't know even how to have those conversations with the Department of Defense, and that's a cultural barrier that we've got to get past. Last thing I'll say, and this is the third thing, is I think that there are some provocative. I'll put these ideas out there. I'm not even sure I endorse them, but I look at things like the GI Bill, and the intent of something like the GI Bill is to help sort of get you educational attainment, which is in turn to get you economic attainment, right? That's sort of the thinking. I'd like there to be a broader application of the GI Bill so that if someone says, I want to take part of my earned tuition benefit and spend it on a coding boot camp, or maybe use it to pay for a co-working space, or maybe use it to get a membership, to go to a conference that Goody Nations is organizing. I can give you 100 really specific activities that you as a veteran could go do that will dramatically increase your career chances on the other side of it, besides just expensive, for-profit tuition. And so there's got to be a conversation about that around kind of the GI Bill and broadening the aperture and giving veterans, I think, more of a voice in how they can use that. Because a lot of for-profit universities have taken a lot of money from veterans without results. And there are a lot of things that are not accredited education that are getting great results. And we ought to make those opportunities available for veterans. And I think the benefits that they've accrued ought to be able to be applied for those things.
That's an amazing point. That's an amazing point. So before we got there is one question from Reginald. Before we get to that, again, if anybody else has any questions, please drop them in chat. Before we get to that, quick thought on any particular veterans that are doing well in the startup space you may be aware of. So I know I'm aware of Carla Bond up in the DC area, Upskill VR, recent Google for Startups Black Founders Fund Award winner, doing some great things using virtual reality to help train emergency or first responders on things like CPR and things of that nature. But Todd, any other veterans in the startup space, again, either founders or early employees that come to mind?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, there's tons. I mean, we run a program in partnership with WeWork, including in Atlanta, where called the Veterans in Residence Program, and we take veteran or military spouse or active duty founded startups, and typically they're idea stage, and we put them through a 6-month incubator in partnership with WeWork, and across the country right now, we've got, I think, 260 companies that are going through that program. And they're doing, and Carla Bond is, I think, a graduate of that program. Of the companies that come into that program, 60% of them end up generating their first revenue throughout the course of that 6 months. And to me, generating your first dollar is a much bigger excitement and milestone and cause for celebration than raising your first round or even getting your first loan, because that's the most pure. I saw the question that Reginald, you asked, which is about access to capital. I think the first answer I give to everyone is like, how do I access capital? I'm like, go sell it to a customer. Get them to pay you for whatever it is that you're doing. That's the best capital. It's customer capital. Sales, and then everything else is secondary. But yeah, in terms of companies, I mean, Carla Bond, we've got some big successes like Nick Tarano, who started Plated and sold them to Albertsons for an undisclosed sum of money, but probably between $200 and $400 million. We've got Milk Money Kitchens, Nancy Preston out of New York City, who came up with a provisional sort of kitchen sharing program. So she basically figured out that, hey, you can be a restaurant and deliver through Grubhub in all these platforms. And a lot of restaurant entrepreneurs want to do that. They want to, sell through Grubhub because that's like, and other food delivery platforms because that's big money, but you don't actually need a storefront to do that. You just need a brand and then you need a kitchen. So she has this kind of co-working kitchen space and has had phenomenal success with that. COVID, rocked the whole restaurant industry, but she then pivoted to providing meals for first responders and frontline workers in the healthcare and hospital space. And so, just agility and pivoting and, again, Carla Bond, I mean, tons of others. We've got, of the 260, lots of them are starting non-for-profits. Lots of them are, pursuing technology startups, several doing things in the food and beverage space. You got some whiskey, you got some cigar companies, it's, there's something for everyone. And really, it's the best companies are the ones that are just creatively pursued in the brand and in the image and the passion for the entrepreneur that's got the idea. Executive Protection is another great example. So yeah, lots of good businesses out there. My success metric is always not driven by, those companies that look like they could be unicorn status, but really I look at a life of a human being and say, look, this person would have been fine. They got out of the military. Maybe they went and got a government job and they kind of did that. But maybe we staged an intervention, or they staged an intervention for themselves. We did something catalytic happened where they ended up going this way and started their own business. And that worked. And they, as a result, felt like more fulfilled in their life. They became a better parent as a result. Maybe they ran for office as a result. Maybe they generated some wealth for themselves. Maybe they hired some people as a result. Maybe they hired some military veterans as a result. So it's those, we're trying to look at people whose lives are fine, but with the right kind of intervention, they might actually, find their path into entrepreneurship, and then something really catalytic happens from that place. That's my dream.
No, I love it. Chris, any military veterans that are doing well?
I had a good friend that's local, Todd Ehrlich. He was a Navy SEAL, developed Killcliff, several fintech startups. But he's a college dropout, and he just made something out of himself. And you would never know. He's just a laid back guy. But Todd Ehrlich, and he's actually about to launch a fund, his first fund here for startups.
Really interesting. I mean, I think that even goes into Reginald's question. We know that from Todd that the first investor is going to be the customer. But Todd, Chris, are you familiar with any funds that may be more friendly, so to speak, to veteran-led startups?
Yeah, I mean there are a few. And that's great that Todd Ehrlich from Killcliff is getting in space. What you'll see is a lot of veterans who have been successful, and Todd's a good example of this, who then decide that they want to have, invest in other companies. And of course, they're going to have that lens, that preferred lens, or at least that understanding lens of what the military community can offer. And so I think if it's looking for angel investors or mentors, it's great to get with those who are, connected to the military community, who can maybe come alongside you. And folks that have been successful, sometimes they don't show up, as self-identified as an angel investor. Yeah. But I tell early entrepreneurs, if you think that you're going to need to raise money, get people alongside you early in the journey as advisors and mentors who could ultimately have the capacity to invest in you. And when they see you kind of working hard, validating, taking feedback, pivoting, doing the things, operating as a smart entrepreneur, they will take notice of that. And the key is to sort of build that relationship for the long term, so that at some point, if you do need to raise money, they have context for who you are, what you've been doing, and are probably, going to be favorable to you. Mm-hmm. So investing is really built on relationships. There are some investors that specifically focus on the military community. Brandon Shelton out of Charlotte, North Carolina, terrific guy, focuses on the military community. TFX Capital is his organization. You've got Moonshot Capital, Craig Cummings, Kelly Purdue, who's actually, I think, season 2 winner of The Apprentice. He's actually on the Bunker Labs board. They invest in military veterans in the military kind of sector. And then you've got a lot of other investors who are not military veterans themselves, but who understand the military affinity networks and markets. So you've seen some folks that have invested in, sort of military, themed or military affinity apparel lines and things like that. There are some investors that understand this is a big demographic, and there's nuance in terms of that too, but that there's a big demographic that's interested in sort of products and services that are tangential, and they have an investment sort of lens towards that. But yeah, and then Hivers and Strivers is a angel investor network, and I mean there's others as well. But investors, I will just say this, the final thought, and go to Rich. Investors are not. It's not a Hail Mary. It's not auditioning for Shark Tank. It's not. It is really, you have something of merit that's been demonstrated. And the best time to come to an investor is like, hey, I've already got some customers. It's very, very difficult, very unlikely if you have never raised money before or started a business before and you're not generating revenue that you're ever going to get an investor to give you money. I would say you don't have to think like that. Read the book and I'll just give you strategies on how you can actually build something before you go to an investor. But I see too many people who never get off the starting block because they've got an idea and they think that they can't do anything until they have an investor. And you're never going to get out of that loop because no investor is going to come and invest in you in that situation.
I'm with you 1,000%. And so as we go to closing here, I think even in Atlanta, to my understanding, I believe that Paige Craig with Outlander Labs is a Marine. So again, don't quote me that. That's my understanding. And so they have a very unique way of evaluating founders, especially based on my understanding, again, his experience in the military. But then again, don't quote me on that. A few people from that Outlander team are speaking tomorrow. So this has been an awesome conversation. Chris, is there any way that people can get in contact with you?
Sure. I'm not on Snapchat or anything, but you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'll put my information in the chat box.
Nice. And Todd, what about, how can people order the book? How can they find more information about you? Things of that nature.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Joey. And thanks for what you're doing. And thanks, Chris. Good to spend time with you. So thirdshiftentrepreneur.com is where you can get the book. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and everywhere books are sold. It comes out in January for the sort of final release. And find me on LinkedIn or Bunker Labs. Just Google, and my email's out there, and happy to hear from folks. If you want to start a business, if you're in the military community, join one of our local chapters. And so that's my encouragement. If you're wanting to start a business, go to bunkerlabs.org, get involved there. If you want to get the book, go to Third Shift Entrepreneur, and we can help you there. Awesome.
Gentlemen, this has been a great conversation. It's been inspiring. Hopefully that everyone in the audience that will watch this, in time to come via YouTube has been inspired as well, and is dedicated to do a few things. If you're a startup, looking to bring on a veteran, and hire a veteran. If you work for a large company, again, look to hire a veteran. If you're, again, a founder, look to get a veteran as a mentor, an advisor, or something of that nature. But, if you know a Marine, call a Marine today, apparently, which I will be doing in a few minutes. Tomorrow is a big day as well. So if you know any veterans, be sure to thank them for their service. And more importantly, thank you, Todd, Chris, you and your family being out there. I think he's going to be able to view from the audience and everyone else. Thank you for your service. And I look forward to welcoming more veterans into the Atlanta startup ecosystem for the years to come. So thank you a lot. And everyone have a great day. There'll be more sessions this afternoon, I think, kicking off. I think the other session's kicking off at 1:00. I'm also leading a session with Startup Atlanta's board on diversity inclusion over the next few years, and getting more military veterans is something I'm personally going to be bringing up as well into the ecosystem. Is going to be something I'll be bringing up. So looking forward to seeing many of you all a little bit later on this afternoon, and then throughout the conference. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Oh.